morning, friends. Wish you a very happy and prosperous new year. And welcome to NRI Samay online radio. We bring the untold stories and the unheard voices. I'm your host for today, Suresh Iriga. Last week we had to cancel the show and the interview with Mr. Prashant Bhushan due to some technical difficulties. We apologize for the inconvenience caused, and we promise to bring you back the interview of Mr. Bhushan soon. This week we'll be interviewing the youngest women Sarpanch of India, Ms. Chavvi Rajawat, Sarpanch of Sora village in Rajasthan. We'll know about the motivation behind her decision to be a Sarpanch, the project she has taken up in the village of Sora, and what we can learn from it. You can post your questions to Ms. Chavvi Rajawat at facebook.com/NRISamay or ask them yourself by calling 323-410-0162. And please note that the call feature is available for users in the USA only. The interview will start in a few minutes. Until then, stay tuned.
This is Shravanti Elamanchli, and you're listening to NRI Samay online radio. Today we have here with us Ms. Chavvi Rajawat, the youngest women Sarpanch of India. Chavvi left a high-profile corporate job and returned to her roots to develop rural India, starting with her village, Sora, where she won the Sarpanch elections. As a village president, she has implemented several projects and won applause. Times of India, in one of the articles, has created Chavvi Rajawat as the changing face of rural Rajasthan. We'll hear more about the motivation behind her work, projects she has taken up, and what we can learn from them on today's show. Chavvi, I would like to wish you a Happy New Year and welcome to NRI Samay online radio.
Thank you very much. Wishing a Happy New Year to you and to all the listeners as well.
Thank you. So Chavvi, let's start with like the most obvious question that everyone, they would think of whenever they hear your story. So what inspired you to quit a high-profile corporate job, and then, what made you to decide run for the Sarpanch seat for a rural village in India, Sora?
Well, actually, the primary reason was the fact that rural India is not developing the way that it should. And even though there is a lot of funding that goes in the name of rural development, there's still a huge gap. And all that I'm trying to do is bridge that gap by being the person trying to connect the village with the government, corporates, and outside agencies and individuals in the hope that I could connect the two and help bring about the development which is much needed. Of course, the decision was not really mine. The decision, it wasn't something that I had planned. It was something that the villagers wanted, and they came home to me in Jaipur, which is where I was living, and persuaded me into contesting these elections. One, because they wanted to see development, which they hadn't seen in the past almost 20 years. And two, because a village is like one unit. It's like one family. And the fear was that with almost about 18 women wanting to contest these elections, it would have meant that the entire village would have fallen apart. So they said that if somebody from my family came and contested these elections, then the village would remain united, and that's exactly what happened. So these are the main factors, and of course it was a reserved seat for women, which meant that only women could contest these elections. And I'm guessing that's why they thought of me, which also was because I've been going to the village ever since I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And I have a very strong emotional connect with the people in the village and with the village itself, because that's where my family hails from. So all I'm doing is trying to help them in whatever capacity I possibly can.
Okay, yeah, that's good to hear. But how did you feel when, the villagers, they came to you and your family and asked you to run for the Sarpanch seat? Because, being educated, because this is not usually a profession that many educated, good-spirited young individuals of today's generation would prefer. So how did you feel?
Well, honestly speaking, when they came and approached me, I was completely taken aback and totally overwhelmed. And what really touched me the most was the fact that the 50-odd men who first came home, in fact, they came home twice over to convince me, were men who had carried me on their shoulders when I was a child. And these were people who were much older than my dad, some of them as old as my grandfather. And when I'd gone to the village, the expectations that were visible in their eyes is what actually touched me the most. And personally, very often, a lot of people think of my having given up the corporate job as a sacrifice. But personally, I don't think so, because what I believe is that even when we're earning, we're doing it for our family. And I think the only thing that perhaps is different is the fact that I see my village as family, because that's where my family hails from. That is what home really is for, not just for me, I think for all of us Indians. All our roots belong to some village or the other, and that is where home for all of us actually is. And all I'm doing is just trying to help provide a better place for the people living in that home, which is called my village, Soda.
That's very good to hear. And so, I mean, usually, like, did you have to go through the first election, or was it more like a, single nomination? Like, can you tell us about how did it go?
Well, actually, the majority of the village, in fact, even the people who had come to convince me, they wanted me to be selected unanimously. And out of the 18 women who wanted to contest these elections, everybody on their own actually backed out. There were only 2 other women who stood against me, which of course hurt the majority of the village. But I was happy because I got to see the procedure up close and personal. So basically there were 3 of us. So yes, I went through the normal procedure of contesting an election.
How many votes did you win over the other?
Well, apparently in the entire district, the province, I apparently got won by the maximum number of votes, which was, I don't remember the number. It was
a rough number to get an idea, or a percentage.
Around about 1,400. I won by about 1,400 out of, I think there were about 2,000 something people who had who casted the vote, and that was the margin that I won by.
Okay, yeah, that's nice. So one of the listeners, Sri Harsha Puranik, he has posted a question to you on Facebook. Can you brief us the duties of a Sarpanch on day-to-day basis? And if you don't mind answering, what is the average salary that a village Sarpanch gets? This is to get a feel of the lifestyle for those who wants to consider following your path.
Sure. So one you said was the salary, and the other you asked me was what
day-to-day
routine like.
Sarpanch.
Right? Okay. Speaking of salary, this is not a paid job. There is an honorarium that is given, which varies from state to state. So in Rajasthan, for example, a Sarpanch would get 3,000 rupees per month. While there are other states that I know of, for example, Maharashtra, the Sarpanch only gets 500 rupees a month. And I also heard through someone else that in another state up north, it's even lesser. So that's as far as the honorarium or the remuneration is concerned. And speaking of the routine, well, firstly, for me, it's been it's 24/7. Every day is a Monday, and typically my day begins at about 6 a.m. with the villagers pouring into the house, and then of course we carry on with my office work, which begins at about 10ish, and all the paperwork at 6 happens, and office shuts at about 5:36. Post which, again, there's work going on because there are a lot of activities that keep happening in the village. Even personal disputes you have to look into. You have to plan for development and what can work, what cannot work. So you're pretty much on your toes all the time. Typically for me, my day begins, like I said, at 6 a.m. and ends by about 11 p.m. with people again coming to me in my house in the evenings. also because sometimes they don't want to openly discuss their personal issues, so they prefer coming home and having a one-to-one conversation.
Okay. It's more like listening to their issues and, suggesting the solutions and stuff like that, right?
It's a mix. It's a mix. It's not just providing solutions, but also I like to, because one thing I've noticed, which unfortunately doesn't happen very much in rural areas, is have people participate. So that, touchwood, I'm glad I've been able to motivate people to do so. So we're constantly chatting up and discussing on how we can do things better, because funding is a huge issue, and we don't get this kind of support that we should in a village. So that's where we try and do a lot of brainstorming to come to some conclusion. And however, it's not that I get work done only by being in the village. I have to chase there's a block level. So basically above the panchayat, the immediate bureaucracy that you deal with is at the block level, which is also called the tehsil. And above that is the district headquarters. So a village, technically everything, we're at complete mercy of the district headquarters, because the bureaucracy sitting there is the one which decides what kind of funding and what projects to sanction, whether to sanction them at all or not. So there's a lot of chasing to do at the block level as well as at the district level. And ever so often, one also has to come to the state to meet the ministers and senior bureaucrats. So that, in my case, would be Jaipur. So it's a lot of running around between all of these. In addition to which, like I said, funding being a critical aspect, there are a lot of projects which, unfortunately, the government does not have means of funding. For example, our biggest issue in my village is drinking water, wherein groundwater has been declared unsafe even for the purpose of agriculture, owing to natural contamination and high salinity. So we decided to revive our biggest reservoir, which covers 100 acres of an area. And the estimated cost of that project is 3.5 crores. Which I'm bad at math, but I think it equates to about, how much would it be? 775,000 USD. I could be wrong, but I think it's about that much. So unfortunately, the state government cannot fund, it prohibits usage of machinery in rural areas. So to revive a reservoir that large, because we've been told that rainwater is the only source of safer drinking water. So that's why we decided to revive and strengthen our reservoir, but the government unfortunately couldn't fund it. So they said, we can't help you, but you have the freedom to go ahead and raise funds on your own and carry out the project yourself. So these are the kind of issues that we have.
Okay, so like going to the tehsil or the mandal level headquarters, and then to the district level, and then to the state level.
Yes, and so when it comes to projects,
okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. No, what I was saying was, apart from the government, what I'm also trying to do is interact with corporates and NGOs and even individuals, because that's the only other option I have where to raise funds from.
Sure. Yeah, we'll talk about the projects and funding probably, in the next half of the interview. So here, like, someone is asking, Suresh is asking you, who gives the information to the Sarpanch, like whom to go and where to go? Like whom to approach? Like where are you getting all this information from?
Sure. Technically and officially, like I said, we have an office in the village, which is called the Panchayat office. So there's a person appointed by the government. He is called the secretary to the Panchayat. So officially, he's the one who's supposed to assist the Panchayat, that is the elected representatives, the Sarpanch and the other representatives, on how to proceed, what to do, who to go to, what are the schemes which are available. The sad part is that majority of these people are not really qualified enough to give and share the right kind of information. And also there's a lot of other loopholes because of which the assistance that should be provided by such secretaries are often not provided. So, but ideally they're the ones who are supposed to give the information. If you don't get it from them, then you approach the block level. And if you don't get it from those people, then of course you chase the district headquarters. There's a CEO for the Rural Development Department, and you can get information from them. I, however, given the fact that I have education backing me up, as and when I can access the internet, which unfortunately doesn't happen in the village, but that's where I get most of my information from.
Okay, yeah, that's good that you have access to the internet, but unfortunately, most of the Sarpanchs usually the rural areas, they don't. And it's good that you mentioned they can go to the mandal level and then to the other levels. So,
right.
Karthik is asking you, you could have chosen other position like a mayor or an MLA, so you will be able to serve better. Why a Sarpanch?
Because one, like I said, it wasn't something I had planned. It was something that the villagers wanted for me to do. And two, I also realized that we actually want to get work done, as in things actually executed, and see the results of it. This is the best way to do so. And the other aspect is, of course, a lot of people also say you could have done it. You didn't have to fight the contest the elections or become a Sarpanch, you could still do it. But I think by being at the platform I am at is a very good platform where I can benefit from the schemes of the government and try and attract those into bringing development, along with which I can also look outside to do so. So it's like what I'm trying to do is get the best of both worlds.
Okay, that's cool. So apart from the financial challenges, what are the other kind of challenges you face as a village Sarpanch?
I'd say it's primarily just the funds. If the funds were available, it would be a piece of cake. That's where the struggle really lies, and sometimes I have to admit it can get frustrating because even when we speak of the government schemes, typically, in fact, they exist for the benefit of the village, and yet they don't seem to, projects don't get sanctioned. And most of our energies as Sarpanchas are wasted in just chasing people who otherwise are being paid to do just that, So that is the frustrating aspect. In addition to which, I'd say within the village, personally for me, it's not a problem because everybody sees me as a daughter of the village, and that again has an added advantage. And at the same time, the good thing is like even men who are much older than me, when I request them to do things, they understand where I'm coming from and they comply. However, I've also noticed it's unfortunately or fortunately, either ways, given the kind of media coverage I've gotten, so I can understand the local at the grassroots level politicians and the ones who are aspiring to get into politics. They of course do tend to feel threatened because of the kind of coverage I've gotten. So indirectly, they do try and hinder my projects, not directly, but indirectly by pressurizing the local government officials, etc. So those are the kind of issues that I face. But that really is not my biggest issue. My biggest issue, as I said, which I think would be common for most of the villages, is the fact that we don't have funds to carry out projects on our own. And like I said, we are completely and totally dependent on the district headquarters to sanction and release funds. And given the fact that my village falls in one of the most backward districts of Rajasthan, which really doesn't have any industries, so we're really, tied up, really, really tight as far as funds are concerned. And there really is no way of raising funds on our own because the only source of income for the village is agriculture, which is totally seasonal and completely dependent on rainfall. At the same time, I think I love what I'm doing because even though, the achievements, I wouldn't say I've really achieved anything yet, but in the little bit that we manage and the kind of joy that it brings to the people is I think, way, way more satisfying than anything else, and that's what I love the most.
Okay, that's good. So fame is really not an advantage then, so it's become your disadvantage now because, because of your popularity in the internet as well as in the media. You said that people are like trying to stop your projects and trying to give you more challenges by doing so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
That's really unfortunate.
But like I said, it's something that I knew was likely to happen. Of course, I didn't expect the media coverage like I got. So, but I knew it wasn't going to be an easy task to do. So like I said, the end result.
How is it like being a woman? I mean, being a women Sarpanch, did you face any discrimination or anything more challenging on that aspect?
Not at all. Like I said, in the village, not at all. Of course, when I meet the district level and the block level government officials, it's not. I wouldn't say it's really in your face, so to speak. It's subtle sometimes, but it's not. I don't think it has very much to do with the fact that I'm a woman. I think this has to do with the fact they're just not used to it. They're used to having men approach them and question them. And here is someone, not just a woman, but someone much younger than them, who comes and questions them and questions their decisions. So you do, it's only natural for one's ego to get hurt, which, of course, I try and avoid doing as much as possible, but it's not an easy thing, and it does happen.
Did anyone try to discourage you directly or, say something to you on your face? Did you have to face anything like that?
No. Luckily, I haven't had to face any of that as yet. And in my village, like I said, I don't think I'm likely to face anything like that because, one, it was a decision of the villagers, and two, they see me as the daughter of the village, which, like I said earlier, is an added advantage for me.
Yeah, that's really nice. So you were mentioning about the funding that comes from the district level, right? So how is this funding going to be? Is it issue-based funding or region-based or village-based? How does it work?
Well, it's supposed to be population-wise, and then, of course, through the district, it is done block-wise and village-wise. So the procedure basically is that the panchayat sends a proposal of the projects that we would like to see undertaken in our village, our respective village. And then we forward it to the block level. The block level government officials, like a block, again, depending on the population. For example, my block has 36 panchayats under it. So it sends the report it receives, sends the list of proposals which receives from the various panchayats to the district headquarters. Okay. And the district headquarters then decides which project to sanction in which village. The only sad part is that, in fact, I personally don't think the Sarpanch really, at least not in our area, doesn't really have the kind of position nor power that one perceives them to have. In fact, just to give you an idea, we don't even have funds to employ even a single individual to do the basic cleaning of the roads or even a building. So that's how sad the situation really is. So we totally depend, and the people who do sanction don't really know what the grassroots realities are. They don't know what the issues in that village really are. So just to give an example, 2010 when I got elected, the government had declared our region as a drought-hit zone. In spite of that, when I listed my proposal, I went a step further and listed them down on basis of priority. Personally went and requested the government officials to sanction our water-related projects first, because water was what everyone was craving for. And summers do get really, really bad. In spite of having done that, we had a pre-nursery school which got sanctioned, which was, it kind of shook me a little bit, because here we went to them and said, this is what the village wanted. In spite of that, our plea was kind of ruled out and ignored, and there was this building which really was not the need of the hour. So that's how things happen, and that is what is unfortunate. One thing that I'm trying to do is voice these issues in the hope that people will wake up, because most of the people don't really know what the grassroots realities are. They don't know what's happening, and policymakers, they do have, and some of the schemes on paper are really great, but the fact is that they don't know what the village really wants. And it needs to be a bottom-up approach for things to be able to deliver better and to have sustainable projects, which is what the village really needs.
Okay. Friends, you're listening to NRI Samay online radio, and here we have with us Ms. Chavvi Rajawat, the youngest women Sarpanch of India, and she's discussing about the grassroots level issues and how desperately the village needs funds in order to solve the issues and stuff like that. If you have any questions, please post them to www.facebook.com/NRISamay, or NRI users can also call 323-410-0162 and post your questions. And next week we'll be having Mr. P. Sainath, the journalist and Magsaysay Award winner, Mr. P. Sainath. He will be discussing on the farmer issues. So, Chavvi, you are mentioning about the water issues and stuff like that, right? So what's the current status now in Soda village about the water issues?
Well, we still, like I said, I'm still trying to raise funds for our main water conservation project, which, like I said, the summers of 2010 were really, really bad. And the people, because there's no other source of water, they end up drinking the same contaminated and saline water, which causes a lot of, we all, and I'm guessing we all have heard of fluorosis. But the problem is that the contamination also, apart from fluoride, also has other minerals, which therefore make the issue that much graver. And like I said, what we were told, because I contacted UNICEF Water and Sanitation Department, I also spoke to some of the NGOs which focus on water projects. Unfortunately, they don't work in the district that my village falls in. So they said the only easy solution and the immediate solution which could work for you is to conserve rainwater. And that is where we decided to revive our largest reservoir. Because the government couldn't support us, and I did contact a lot of corporates which do also sell their products and services in my village, in the hope that they would be able to adopt a certain, not all of it. But unfortunately, that did not happen. And by May end, I was really, really disheartened. So that's when I turned to my parents. And luckily for me, my parents helped. My grandfather contributed. 3 of my dad's friends also contributed. And there was one lady from Delhi, a young entrepreneur named Vandana Singh, who heard an interview of mine, and she sent a check of 50,000 rupees. And courtesy all of them, I was able to collect 20 lakhs of rupees, with which we were able to excavate the soil. Basically, it was a silt that needed to be removed. And we were able to desilt 10 acres of the 100 acres. And luckily for me and luckily for the village, the monsoons of 2010 were amazing. The villagers claimed that it was after 14 years that they saw good rain. Courtesy which that 10 acres is what was able to hold water, and luckily enough, it was able to provide, of course, not to the entire village, but to the core of the village, was able to provide water for the entire year to the beginning of 2011 monsoons. Normally, just to give an idea as to the capacity of that reservoir, normally post-monsoons, the water usually dries out by early to mid-Feb maximum. So you can imagine the rest of the months through basically beginning or mid-Feb through till say about end July, August, there is no safe drinking water available for the villagers.
Okay.
So that was the relief that we were able to bring in. But the remaining 90 acres of the reservoir, as well as the strengthening of the banks of the reservoir, all of that still needs funding, which I'm being optimistic. We haven't gotten it yet, but I'm sure there'll be some good people out there who would eventually help.
This is very unfortunate because, you mentioned it's a 3.5 crore project and the government hasn't come forward to even give out a single penny. I mean, this is how it works in every village, and we have to totally depend on the NGOs. This is really unfortunate.
Yes, unfortunately.
What's the best situation for it, and what is that we can do?
Like I said, it's primarily the funding, and if people could adopt projects in villages, irrespective of how small. I've noticed ever so often, we as individuals think that, how is my little bit of support going to help? But I think it goes a long way. Even if it's $1 per person, it's the saying that goes, especially in India, that you hear it ever so often, that each drop counts, and with each drop is how the ocean gets to collect water. And I think it's the same thing, that no matter how small the help may be, it actually goes a long way. Of course, you just need to ensure that wherever you're sending the money, it is being utilized properly. So you should be able to demand details or ask for receipts and report on where the funding has gone. And I think one has a right to do so. But I think it's only with that villages can benefit. And given the fact that there are a lot of Indians who are abroad as well, we all, I feel, whether in India or outside of India, we do want to give back some way or the other. And there's a huge scope because more than 70% of India resides in rural areas, which unfortunately are really neglected. When I said about the government not being able to fund, it's because the government has its policies, and state-wise it varies. So unfortunately, the state government cannot help us because its policies are so stringent that they don't allow them the flexibility to fund projects which require machinery, which our project needed, because we need earth move to excavate the soil. Now that is where their hands were tied, because the policy doesn't allow them to do so.
Okay, so the categories that the government funds the projects are very narrow, that it does not allow a broad range. So can you tell us the kind of funds that we get? The kind of funds we need or we get from the government, like water is one issue that we could see in every village. Then what are the other kinds of funds that we can get?
It's villages, especially the remote villages. That means the villages which are further away from urban areas. The line which or the agenda which would require funding it ranges from everything to everything. It's like from A to Z. It could be from, just to give you an example, in my village and my neighboring villages, it's from, the biggest issue is the fact that we don't have drinking water. Because of lack of water, there's not enough fodder, so you cannot focus on animal husbandry. You cannot cultivate your land. You're totally dependent on water for that. Then even the education is really, really poor, even though there are schemes for free education in rural areas. But in spite of that, the problem is that the quality of education is really, really poor. We have the same teacher, just to give an example, in the primary school, which is still the 5th grade. It's 1 teacher to 40 students. That's the kind of ratio they're supposed to maintain. So typically there are 2 teachers in 1 primary school, because of which, say about 3 to 4 different grade students end up sitting in the same classroom, under the same room, and are taught by the same individual. So you can imagine what kind of education that would be. And again, in my village, we have a high school that is the standard, the 11th and 12th grade. That is where you get to choose the stream of your choice. And unfortunately, the students in my village only have the option of, in fact, it's not an option. The only subjects available to them, Sanskrit literature and geography. So you can imagine what kind of future they would have when these are the only subjects that's available to them. Then again, when we speak of, because I believe that if you want development, it has to be socio-economic. And the economic conditions in the village is really poor. Just to give you an idea, the average income, of course I'm speaking on the higher side, would be, I think, 25,000 rupees per annum, which is what, I guess, about $500 per annum. And this, mind you, is on the higher side. So you can imagine, it's like just getting a good full-course meal is, one square meal itself is an issue for the people here. There's no, which means that post-monsoon, people start tilling the land, say by end July, and the harvesting happens by March, April. The remaining months, they have absolutely nothing to do. Therefore, the migration happens. For those who can afford to move out, who are a little more capable and can get jobs outside, they move away. So we also have a community which moves away during summers to find jobs in a different state, and then they come back post-monsoons. So life in the village really is a struggle, and people don't have toilets in the houses. Women suffer. The kind of disputes I normally handle during monsoons are disputes about who's going to go and walk through whose land to ease themselves in whose land, and that's what people pick up fights about, because even the basic infrastructure is not proper for them to take care of their very basic needs. And unfortunately, like I said, the policymakers sit in big cities. They don't live in the rural areas. So I have attended conferences where people have turned around and said that in villages people don't understand. For them, it's not about human development index. It's more about having the basic infrastructure. But if you look around, even when we're looking at buying a house, what is it that we look for? The basic road connectivity. If there is no connectivity by road, one is not likely to buy the plot or buy a house in that neighborhood. And in villages, that's not how houses are built. But the fact is, you do need basic infrastructure to be able to move out of your house to fetch water. But if you can't walk through it, the maximum dropouts in schools happen, again, during the monsoons because water clogs up. It's almost waist high, and kids cannot wade through that water to go to school. Women struggle to fetch water from hand pumps, etc. And so that's, if you really look at it, funding is needed in everything as far as village development is concerned.
That's really very unfortunate that most of these issues are like very basic, and the basic amenities and infrastructure, and they are lacking even those. That's really very unfortunate. And I hope after listening to our show here on NRI Samay, at least a few listeners would come forward to help the village Soda to develop and provide the basic amenities that Chavvi has just mentioned. So, Chavvi, what are the other projects that you are working on? So let us come back. You said you won the elections in 2010. So since then, what are the kind of developments that you got into the village? Can you please brief us some of them?
Sure. Here are key areas apart from water, which I seem to keep harping about. They're also building toilets. We have about 1,000 households in my village with a population of about 10,000 people. So we are aiming at building toilets in each and every house in the village. Apart from which, we're looking at improving the education, quality of education, and that's where I'm trying to find out if there's any way I can connect with people to bring in virtual education and fill that gap, because it is really difficult to physically have an individual come, and of course the costs of that again are much higher. So that's the other thing. In addition to which, we want to bring in skill development and provide alternate sources of income for the villagers, especially the women, because they're the ones who suffer the most in the village. And they're also good managers because they handle things inside the house as well as outside. And even though this is a patriarchal society and women don't really have much of a say, but at the same time, if they get that moral support and the confidence, they're able to deliver a lot more, which I've seen through some of the small projects that we've undertaken in the village or tried to undertake. Just to give an example, there's a hamlet. A hamlet is like a small establishment. So there's a small community which lives a little further away from the main hub of the village. And they've been in the village for very many years but been neglected. And of course, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to focus on the population that otherwise gets neglected. It could be because of their poor socioeconomic conditions, or it could even be casteism, which unfortunately does play a huge role, which, of course, I'm trying to change mindsets, but that is a difficult task. So coming back to the project, what we tried to do was these people had encroached into our pasture land of the village. So while the allocated area for the residential purpose is about 9 acres, a little less than 9 acres. So we spoke to them, and I told them that if you all come together, and we could actually build your colony just the way an urban colony is built, or a residential area is planned out. And they all agreed. Of course, initially there were a few men who were a little apprehensive. They said, we're happy being the way we are. And, you know, because it would take time, it would require a lot of effort, etc. But what was amazing was the fact that the women who stood up, and they actually got these men to finally agree, because they said, we don't care. We don't even care what the men say, because we're the ones who suffer the most. So we want you to go ahead with your project, and we're willing to do whatever needs to be done. And you would not believe, we got no funding from outside for this project. The people living in that hamlet were the ones who made contributions, and we were able to lay down 3 gravel roads between which the plots were to be cut out. And to do so, to provide a straight road, people actually broke down the entire houses because it was coming in the way. So that's the level that they can actually go to, because they are craving to see development, which unfortunately does not happen. Of course, our project did not finish because we ran short of funds, but the fact that they came forward to support the project is what was really, really touching and overwhelming. So these are the projects, and apart from which, of course, we're also trying to, we have a forest area and pasture land. So that's almost about 1,000 acres. So we're trying to revive that as well. And we've gotten plants, but what we don't have are tree guards. So safeguarding these plants is what becomes an issue. But these are the basic steps, apart from many others that we're trying to do.
Okay. That sounds awesome. I mean, you have clearly brought a lot of changes to the Soda village. And, you know, so you were mentioning about the virtual education and creating alternate source of income for the women. So, like, what level of virtual education are you expecting? I mean, this is also for the listeners' sake, in case someone wants to come forward to, you know, offer some kind of service. So what is that they can do for both these issues, virtual education and the alternate source of income for women?
Sure. See, as far as education is concerned, like I said, from even the primary education gap, which needs to be filled somehow. I unfortunately don't have the expertise. But kids, of course, as we all know, they're very quick learners. We, I forgot to mention, recently SAP, through its corporate social responsibility, has set up, on 1st of November this year, it set up a computer literacy lab, which has 10 laptops, and it's filled with kids, and it's so much fun to see them be so excited. So, of course, it's only to provide them the basic computer literacy and to get them the feel of how to use a computer, etc. So it doesn't really bring in the education aspect as such, but that is where I feel, like I said, because bringing an individual may not work and may not be practical because of the cost involved and the willingness of people to come to villages and help people there. But virtual education, I believe, can fill that gap. So we're looking for any kind of project which already exists or any kind of software that exists which could deliver the basic education, have the basic education programs for the primary kids as well as the senior school kids. In addition to which, we're also looking at bringing in, or rather improving or introducing skill development programs so that high school kids as well as adults, especially women, could benefit from it. So there's scope for, if you could find somebody to open up an institute, nothing like it, but even otherwise, small projects could be taken up in the village to provide them the basic training so that they can eventually have their own small businesses and alternate sources of income. As with education is concerned, the other gap that I see fast increasing in rural India is the fact that the kids do manage to get a little bit of education given the schools that exist. But because they have the education, they therefore are not comfortable doing the job that their parents have been doing. So I also feel that it's important to introduce subjects now, like agriculture, animal husbandry, horticulture, in schools, in villages as well, wherein kids can, one, not just learn the basic know-how so that they're able to get high yields and better prices for their produce, and also learn what crops may be grown given the condition of the soil and the water condition. So that is something that they can learn from. And at the same time, I think we'll also give them a sense of, with knowledge comes a lot of respect. So I think it'll also help the youth respect what their parents have been doing, what the elders have been doing for centuries. So I could go on about that. But these are the kind of things which I feel can and should be brought into the villages.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Thank you for explaining it in detail. Chavvi, we have a caller from Chicago. His name is Anand Halvi. Anand, please go ahead and ask your question to Chavvi.
My name is Anand Halvi. Ms. Chavvi, congratulations on all your success. My question is a two-part one. Actually, it's not a two-part question. My first one is an answer. It's not really an answer. An extension of what you said about agriculture being cool. Whatever you're talking about, people having education, not wanting to do the jobs that their parents did. That's already happening in Kerala, where kids don't want to go up on the coconut trees and bring down the coconuts. That's already happening. My question is actually a political one. Unfortunately, in India, there are lots of people who want to bring down people who are doing good work. I read somewhere that the gentleman who you replaced is already at work, spreading all kinds of criticisms about you. How do you plan to attack those criticisms? Because that's a very important part of your job. If you don't have an eye on that aspect, soon enough you're going to be in a lot of hot water.
Right. I personally take criticism in a positive manner. In fact, I personally believe that the more people criticize you, it means that you're definitely doing something right, and that is why they're criticizing you. Well, I'm aware of like I said, in fact, I said earlier as well, given the kind of coverage I've gotten, I can understand people feeling insecure and feeling threatened. So it's not just the person who wanted to continue as a Sarpanch or wanted the lady from his family to continue as a Sarpanch, but not having won, his ego was hurt. It's human nature. It happens everywhere. There's politics, not just in the political world, but it exists even in the corporate world, even in families. It exists everywhere. But I think we just learn to live with it, and you choose to ignore or you choose to work towards it. It totally depends on how things are. But yes, like you said, I'm aware of it. However, it's not something that I allow to get bogged down by. In fact, personally, I think it is what charges me up even more. It makes me more determined to fulfill my project. Of course, the struggle increases because the hindrances increase. And like I said, it's not just a person. In fact, from this gentleman, it's not much of an issue as it is from outside of the village with the local government, the junior-most government officials, because they're not used to someone like me. However, at the same, even if they're not helpful, what is really interesting to note is the fact that they respect you. They may hate you, but they will still respect you. So it's really, up until now, it really hasn't bogged me down, and I'm hoping it doesn't. And I'm hoping that answers your question.
Okay. So thank you, Mr. Anand. And Chavvi, I have a question on the same lines from Ram Gopal from Atlanta. So his question is, most of the time people expect favors like finding a job, financial help, and things like that, which have nothing to do with governance or community welfare. How are you dealing with those?
Well, like I said earlier, what I'm trying to do is build the community spirit. I'm trying to get the people to understand and try and be more self-sufficient. Like I said, the government schemes, they're great on paper, but I think it has also put people in the back foot, in the sense, not in the back foot, but it's put people in the back seat. Because, and I personally am not for charity, quote unquote, in the sense, I've noticed that anything that's given for free tends to be taken for granted. So what I'm trying to do is, yes, we need the funding, but I want people to understand that it is their need that is much higher, and that is why they need to respect what is coming in and treat it accordingly. So yes, it is difficult because the mindsets are, that's the most challenging thing to do, to change a mindset. But I've also noticed people do understand, because what I do is, instead of having a one-way dialogue, instead of telling them what to do, I have them come up with ideas. And I only put in my bit when I think the thought needs to be tweaked a little bit, or maybe that my suggestion could come up with a better solution. And so because we work as a team, the acceptance of that is much higher and therefore more respected. So I think that kind of takes care of it. But yes, I still have a long way to go. And I'm trying to also reach out to NGOs and other agencies who can help me build that community spirit, because to do that, it requires me to put all my energies towards it, which I cannot afford to do, given the kind of responsibilities I have. But yes, that's what I'm working towards.
Okay. So Ram Gopal, I hope that answered your question. So Chavvi, you were just mentioning about the team, right, like your team. Can you tell us a little bit like who comprises of the team, and are there any positions that are designated to these team members?
Sure. Including me, there are 12 of us in the Panchayat, that is the elected body, of which there's a Sarpanch, that's me. And next in line is the Up-Sarpanch, or the Deputy Sarpanch. Now, my team comprises of 12 of us, out of which 4 are men and the rest are all women. And apart from me, there's just one other gentleman who's educated. He's a graduate, and another fellow who's studied till the 7th grade. The rest of the team is not educated. They can just sign a paper, but they're not. They cannot read or write. And how this team is made is a village is basically divided into different wards or different sections, and each ward gets to an individual is elected for each ward, and that is what forms the entire team.
Okay. So Sandeep from New Jersey, he wants to ask you, on the website, one of the projects listed for the Soda Village is using solar electricity for street lights. Is this government funded or undertaken by a private-public partnership? And he also wants to know more about the project, the solar electricity for street lights project.
Right. But we haven't really been able to go ahead with that project yet, because I'm still trying to reach out, connect with people who have done so. So I have spoken with one agency which does do that, but we've only been able to communicate over email and just have a chat. But I'm hoping by mid this year the project should carry forward. The government does have its own scheme, but unfortunately, that was one of the main initial things, apart from water and sanitation and plantation, that I focused on, and I'd gone to the department to seek the details from them, because the center does have subsidies for solar electricity in rural for rural India. However, the department itself, the government officials who work in the department itself, were not aware of the scheme, neither did they have the clarity. I then also spoke to an NGO, but realized that the battery that they were using were of very, very, very poor quality. I had, of course, done my little bit of research initially by speaking to some solar manufacturers, solar light manufacturers, and they told me what to be careful of and what to keep an eye out for. So that, therefore, has not worked out yet, but I have recently identified an agency, and I'm hoping to be able to deliver through that.
Okay, that's good. Sandeep, I hope Chavvi has answered your question. And the next thing is, on 25th March 2011, you addressed delegates at the 11th Info Poverty World Conference held at the United Nations. How was the reception, and were there any resolutions taken during the conference? This is asked by Suresh from New Jersey.
Well, the conference was, for me, it was really very interesting, and the agenda as well was, again, very interesting. Unfortunately, of course, answering your question, I'd say I was really well received, primarily because I think I was the only one representing the grassroots. The other people who were around were either from the agency or from the government, and therefore they did not really understand what the grassroots issues were. And we also, through the discussions, I realized, people do go and help in certain areas, but because they don't have the understanding of what the issues are in that area, therefore the sustainability of the project and the sense of ownership at that level is missing. So therefore my input, I think, was well received, because I was able to give them a little more clarity on what to really look for, and which of course has to be a bottom-up approach rather than a top-down approach. So therefore I think it was well received. Resolution, well, unfortunately not so much really, because their primary focus, of course, was on two other countries, and unfortunately not so much on India. And therefore, even though I did connect with a few people, but nothing, as far as my village is concerned, we weren't really able to benefit. But for me, it was an eye-opener, and I was really honored to be at a conference of that level.
Okay, that sounds good. There's a question from Kriti Sharma Patak. She's a volunteer for India Against Corruption from Ajmer, and she's saying that I live in Ajmer and I work for India Against Corruption, and would love to meet Chavvi to know and learn from her about the village upliftment program, and she wants to take it and implement it in Ajmer district. Can you tell Kriti Sharma how it can be implemented, and what is that she needs to do?
I think that's really sweet. I wish I was at the level where I could actually tell people what to do, but I think I'm still, for me itself, it's an on-the-job training, as I've put it, and I have a lot more to do and a lot more to learn. But yes, people are more than welcome to come to my village, and I can take them through the things what we have done and how we've done it. Though of course, I would wish more people would come forward and not necessarily just in my village, but volunteer in other villages. But I think that's the best way to learn. And by volunteering, you're also helping the people in the village. For example, I personally, even though I will be completing 2 years in February, but I don't really have the kind of volunteers that I'd hoped to get to help us carry out our projects, to help us do basic research within the village, etc. So there's so much that one can actually do if one wants to. And I think people should just, without really worrying too much, just go ahead and help people in the villages. Even if you can just give basic information about what kind of schemes that exist in the state at the center, and give that information to the panchayat, to the elected representatives of the panchayat, I think that in itself would be giving a huge help to those people for the betterment of the village, so that they at least have a guideline to work with, which currently does not exist. And even though there are training programs for elected representatives, it is unfortunately very superficial and doesn't really take you through the different programs that exist for rural development.
Okay. Friends, you're listening to NRI Samay online radio, and we have Chavvi Rajawat, the youngest women Sarpanch of India, with us here today. She is answering the questions about the Soda village and the development she has brought into the Soda village. And she's also saying that she is ready to transform her village. All she needs is support from people like you and organizations to adopt the projects in the Soda village. So if you have any questions, you can post them to www.facebook.com/NRISamay, and or you can also call our number. It's 323-410-0016. And Chavvi, what are your plans next? I mean, do you have anything else in mind, like running for an MLA or, anything like what's next with Soda and with Chavvi?
Well, I really haven't planned anything. For me, it's like right now I'm just very focused, which is how I like to be when I'm working. So my focus is just to see the projects come through in the village, and I'm hoping that if I'm able to showcase this village as a model village, to be able to replicate the projects in other villages, I think that could help the villages of India in a big way.
So are you planning to form anything like a progressive network? Sri Hari from Los Angeles.
Sorry, I lost you there.
Oh, Sri Hari from Los Angeles. He wants to know if you're planning to form anything like a progressive network. So whatever you have implemented in Soda, like take the help of a few youngsters and take it to some other villages or something like that. Mm-hmm. Are you planning for?
Yeah. Like I said, I would love to see the progress and achievements that we manage in Soda be replicated in other villages, because in India, in different states, you hear of a lot of villages having done well, but for some strange reason, the practices don't get and the projects do not get replicated. And I think that is where one can actually save a lot of energy, time, as well as money by looking at what work has been done and how has it been done, and learn from it and replicate the same and scale it up. So that is something I would love to do. And like I said, volunteers are needed. Even in my own village, I desperately, the one thing I really, really hope for apart from funds is the fact that I really don't have help in terms of, making projects and doing the basic research, as I said earlier. So, and of course, the other thing I want to do is be able to motivate more educated people to come forward to help villages. Mm-hmm. Maybe the same way that I have done, or even otherwise, like I said, if you want to, you can help and provide whatever assistance you can, and whatever, apart from just the funding, it can help villages in a big way. And yes, networking helps. When you can learn, like for example, I don't have all the information, but I'm sure the other person would have some information that I don't have, and I would have some that the other person doesn't have. So if we can sit together and exchange ideas, we can actually be able to develop many more areas in very many ways.
Okay, that's good. So you were mentioning about the funding, right? That you are expecting some funding from people as well as organizations in order to develop Soda. So how is that people or organizations can contribute? Is there a procedure? Can it be done through online? Also, can non-Indian citizens or people living abroad who are also non-Indian citizens, like some of them, can they also contribute?
Yes, they can. The basic information about the funding procedure exists on the website of SODA, which is, I'm guessing you have it. That's soda-india.in. However, with people outside of India, we have identified an NGO. So, of course, the Panchayat cannot directly, even though we have a bank account, but we just opened the bank account quite recently. So the procedure, a few formalities which have yet to be finished, which haven't been done yet. So we have shortlisted an NGO, the information of which should be on the website soon enough for people from outside of India to route the funding through them. And of course, the other thing which we do and try and be regular with is give regular updates on the website as to where the funding has been utilized and the basic information. But if a person wants that information about where their funds have been used, we are more than happy to provide them with that information as well.
Okay, that's very appreciated. Like the transparency part of the funding, it's very important, and I'm very glad that you have come forward to even offer the transparency to the donors. And so, friends, it's soda-india.in, as Chavvi has mentioned. If at all you would like to donate for the development of SODA, please go ahead and do so. All the donation information is present on the website. So, Chavvi, is there what's next for SODA? I mean, what's next after you? Are you encouraging the local leadership? Is there any potential local leader who is ready to take over, behind you, or what's next for the village?
Yes, I am trying to, as I said earlier, get people to stand up and also have the community spirit build up so that people can collectively stand up against the wrongs that are being done. Because that is something that does not happen, at least not in this area that my village falls in, so that the dependency on an individual or on other people gets reduced and people can be more independent and self-sufficient. So that is what I'm working towards, and like I said earlier, I have yet to get NGOs to come in and join hands with us to help me with that process, but I'm positive that I'll be able to do that. And of course, I'm also trying to involve the youth in a big way because they're the ones who are, I believe, suffering the most. Because when you look at kids, I'm not talking about the younger kids, but say mid-school and high school and college-going children. That age group is where, if you look at their faces, you really see no hope in their eyes. And for me, that is something that I really, really want to change. And I feel they need to have dreams. They need to aspire to better lives and have the confidence to work towards it. But if you don't have the hope, then what you really going to work towards? So that is, again, something that I'm hoping to be able to bring in the lives of the kids and the youth of the village.
That's very appreciated, and it's very good. Thank you. So is there a message, Chavvi, that you would like to give it to our listeners who would like to aspire to get into politics and work at the grassroots level, just like how you're doing?
Sure. I think, like I said, one needs to, and more people need to. And I think education, a lot of people, of course, turn around and tell me that you've done an MBA and what are you doing in a village. But I think that for me is my biggest support. And I feel if more people come forward to help grassroots in whatever capacity, if you can come in as a Sarpanch, as get into politics, nothing like it, because if you have the vision. At the same time, I think it is also very, very important not to forget that being a politician doesn't mean that you forget your sense of responsibility. You're the one who's voicing and standing up for the people, and that should not change. And personally, I don't see myself as a politician. I see myself as someone who's doing social work, using the platform of politics, so to speak. But and I think that is something that one should not let that affect oneself and be able to. And I think that's when you can actually deliver. And I again think that one doesn't have to give in to the most read and heard about norms of corruption. You can actually, on a clean slate, be able to do a lot, and I think you're able to do a lot more. And it gives you a lot more strength. And I think people should just come forward and not be afraid of what's there in store, because anything you do, there will be potholes. Life is not smooth. But I think it's worth trying and worth trying to make a change and help people. And I hope more people come forward to do so.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chavvi, for coming here to NRI Samay online radio and sparing your valuable time with us. And it was also very kind enough to come, even despite of your cold and bad health. Thank you very much. And on behalf of all NRIs, I really thank you very much. And
thank you. The pleasure was mine.
Yep. So friends, that was Chavvi Rajawat, the youngest women Sarpanch of India. And I hope you have learned good information about the Soda village, the development she brought in, and she also has sent a very good message of doing the community welfare and how you can develop your own village. And I hope you will take this inspiration from Chavvi and do something good for your own villages and your communities. Thank you, and again, thanks for listening to NRI Samay online radio.
Thank you, Chavvi, and thank you, Shravanti. I would say we started out the new year with a bang. NRI Samay would try its best to keep up with the tempo. So for any suggestions, comments, or feedback, please visit facebook.com/NRISamay or visit us at nrisamay.com. Next week, we bring you live P. Sainath, the Max Essay Award-winning journalist, to talk on farmer issues and agricultural crisis in general. So see you next week. Thank you.